Thank you. First of all, I would also like to thank the High School of Economics for running the conference at the High School of Economics. And now let me get down directly to the substance of our conference. Since I was appointed as a moderator, I have the right and the need to share with you my points with regards to the conference. The first thing I would like to raise is as follows. Since we have here representatives from the countries which have not collapsed and are not disintegrated, which are strong acting subjects in the Middle East, except for Belarus, of course. Given that, the goals and objectives of our today's discussion, as Mikhail correctly mentioned, would be somewhat different compared to the first part of the conference. During day one of the conference, we were mostly focused on what we can hear from the people who represent minorities in the respective countries. Today, we are going to talk about the politics which could apply to the Middle East, and if there is a way to harmonize the approach as proposed by Turkey, Russia, and Syria to actually prevent our running to what the Americans call a stone age. I think that we need to refer to the experience of similar situations and their settlement, just endless local wars, which Russia managed to cope with in the Caucasus, because strictly speaking, what's going on in Iraq or in Syria is of no principal difference compared to what's going on or what's going in the Caucasus. It was just of a different scale, though. What is my take of the Russian experience of positive lessons which could be drawn in order to apply them in the Middle East? The first thing, Russia decided not to unify the region. Russia actually preserved the multi-ethnic variety of the region, and it was the first step to make forward in order to settle down the region, so that helped to address the negative consequences of Wahhabism. The second important thing is particular attention paid by Russia to the enlightened Sufi elite, which actually counteract radical groups which brought in Wahhabism to the Middle East. And speaking of Syria and Iraq, we see other elements which are not of Wahhabism, but structurally they're very similar, because they are trying to forcibly unify all the complex countries, pretty complex in terms of their structure, by means of promoting very simplified interpretation of Islamic wisdoms. There is another point which I would like to draw your attention in the context of Russia's experience in the Middle, and how it could apply in the Middle East. I mean, just unacceptance of the radical trends which put their stake on Islam. And since it's about a real war in real terms, it's the time when, unfortunately, the power should just replace diplomacy there. Does it apply to Middle East or not? So maybe it sounds routine since we're used to a successful settlement, but we have to refer to other successful settlement models which are supportive by maybe less humane forces than Russia. Therefore, this kind of humane model which applied in Russia, in Caucasus, would need some allies in the Middle East, because it's not enough really to come into such a challenging region and to put everything in order as it was done in the Caucasus. I think that as for the natural allies in terms of the settlement model, and leave aside the geopolitics for a moment, I think that Turkey and to some extent Israel could be taken as such allies for Russian efforts to settle it down. That's how I would take it. And I would like us to try maybe to respond to the questions which I have formulated, whether my standing is correct in terms of outlining my Russian policy in the Northern Caucasus, which turned out to be successful, whether it is possible to apply Russian approaches to Middle East settlements, and is it possible to find some trade-offs and long-term partnerships amongst Russia, Turkey, and to some extent Israel.